All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to another 60 minutes of unscripted .NET edutainment. Our mission here is to empower the .NET community to achieve more. I am your host, Luis, and with me today are my co-hosts, Scott and Myra. And we're very excited here to have Niels join us as our guest to talk about building Discord bots using .NET and Azure. But before we get started, Niels, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. My name is Niels. I also go by the nickname of Swimberghe or Real Swimberghe online. You may have seen some of my content on swimberghe.net, which is my website, or on twilio.com/blog, where I actually write as the .NET editor for Twilio, all about .NET.
Awesome. Yeah. So make sure if you're interested in Niels' content, check it out on all those platforms. But before we get started, Scott's going to tell us a little bit about worker services. So, Scott, you want to get into it?
Indeed. All right. Welcome to the Related Bits segment. What I wanted to focus on today is an official document we have out on docs.microsoft.com. This particular one is all about a project template known as worker service. So if you were to open up the .NET CLI, type .NET new worker, or go to File, New Project in Visual Studio, select the worker service template, you would arrive at what this doc is describing. This template is something that was introduced way back in .NET Core 3.0, which now seems ancient, but it's actually not that old. About 3 years old now. So if you were to create a project with this template, what you're going to notice when you open your CSproj file, or if you're an F# developer, your FSproj file, this project type is using an entirely different SDK that you may not have seen before. So the very first element in the project file will reference this Microsoft.net.sdk.worker SDK. And that is going to ship with the .NET SDK. So when you install that SDK, this worker SDK comes along for the ride. Now, if you're looking at this and you're wondering, well, what exactly is a worker service? The good news is if you've used .NET back in the olden days, .NET Framework on Windows, you may have created something called a Windows service to handle any sort of long-running task. In .NET Core and .NET 5 Plus, we now have something called a background service, which is, you can think of it as a cross-platform equivalent of the Windows service thing that you built in .NET Framework. The background service that I'm describing resides in the extensibility suite of APIs that ship with .NET. So if you've used logging, configuration, DI, of course you have, because you wouldn't be developing any .NET Core app without those things. That's where you would find the background service in that hosting namespace. Now, a couple more things I'll point out downstream in this doc that'll be useful as you're getting started. You create this project template. You're going to notice in your program.cs file, it's calling this add hosted service method, and it's registering this worker class, which is also provided for you in the project template. That worker, we have a snippet of it down here. You'll notice this worker is a type of background service. That's one thing that'll really stand out. A couple more things I wanted to point out in this doc. You look at the project file, you're going to notice this new SDK that you may not have seen before. It's there now. There's going to be a single NuGet package installed in a project of this type, and that's this hosting NuGet package. At the end of this doc, a couple more things of interest here. There are actually two lifecycle methods that you can override if needed. Start async and stop async. Typically, as this section here is describing, in this type of app, you do not need to signal the completion of the operation. However, if the need arises, it is possible. I'll wrap things up with saying, if you wanted to take this project template and create a Windows service or a systemd service to run on Linux, that is possible too. Those particular things I mentioned, the Windows service or systemd service, are achievable by installing a separate NuGet package and then calling an additional method in your program CS. So in the case of systemd, if you wanted to go that route, create a systemd service, you would simply install the NuGet package and invoke this use systemd method in your program CS file. With that, why don't we, at the bottom of the screen real quick, can we scroll the Akka link for this doc, if this is of interest to anybody? Check out the bottom of the screen, and what I described today is scrolling across the bottom. Why don't we get into the hallway track and talk to our guest today?
Let's do it. Oh, did we lose Niels? I think we may have.
Okay, I
Hello.
think I got it back.
All right.
I think I
Hello,
was
can you hear me?
clicky. Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
These are things
Great,
that happen
great.
on Monday. That's just how it goes.
Case was off Monday,
Yeah.
and it's live, folks. So anything that happens, it's gonna show up on the stream.
Unscripted hour of .NET. All right, so I'm going to talk about building this Discord bots on .NET today, and I do not have slides except for my introduction slide. So here's my agenda. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Yes, you can. So introductions, which we did. Then we're gonna do a demo of a Minecraft bot that I built, which you'll see in a bit. And then we'll talk about the different libraries that there are out there for .NET to use with this Discord. And then I guess I don't have to talk much about the worker template since we just covered that, which is great. And then we'll build a little ping bot, and then I'll show you a little bit more details about how that Discord server bot is built, the Minecraft server bot. And then lastly, we're going to look at a couple of hosting options that are available in Azure. But first, let's go and do the demo. So I am going to invite my Discord bot using this link into my Discord server. And for those that are not familiar with Discord, Discord is like a instant messaging application that is free and you can chat with your friends. Originally it's targeted for gaming, but it really expanded its audience, I think. So I'm going to invite this Minecraft bot that I developed into my BurgerCraft server, and I'm going to give it permissions to send messages and to use application commands. Alright, now that bot is inside of my server. So this is my server here on Discord. And normally I would have like a bunch of friends on here, and then everybody would be able to use the bot just like I could. What this bot is going to do is it's going to start my Minecraft server, or the Minecraft server that me and my friends are using. And you can also stop it so that I can save some money, so it's not running while we're not using it. And that's kind of like the primary use case that I had for this server bot, is that when me and my friends are not using it, I want it to be stopped so it's not incurring any billing. But when they do want to use it, they can just start it themselves, and I don't have to do it myself. Like, I don't have to manage it myself. So the way you would do that is by hitting the /, and then it will list the different commands that are available on this bot. And let's go take a look at what the server status is first. So server status is off. Then let's see if we can turn that on by using server start. It's going to say starting server. And then in maybe 10 seconds, it should say started server. So let's wait a little bit. And there we go, the server started. And now I can say server connection info. And you can see the IP address and the domain of my Minecraft server. And now anybody should be able to join me in that Minecraft server if you have the game. Let's see if it works.
While this is loading, I noticed that you went through some sort of authentication process. Was that all sort of handled for you, or did you kind of, I guess by Discord, or did you have to write some custom code to do the authentication there?
So for the bot to join into the Discord server, you generate this link. So the link that you saw was this one. So it has my bot ID in here, and then it has a bit mask of all the permissions that I'm requesting. And so those were the permissions that were listed, and that I had to like use the checkbox for
Gotcha.
to grant that permission.
Okay, makes sense.
So I have the server here, but connect to it. There we go. So key Minecraft server. Now I'm using Minecraft in this case. And here you can see is a Minecraft server. It's the same link in the Discord prompt. Now let me close that. Now, I'm using a Minecraft as an example here, but I've used this actually for other games like Rust, and you can do it for any game, or it doesn't even have to be for a game, but this was kind of like a fun use case for me to work on. Now we can also stop it, and we can also restart it. And when it stops, it's actually gonna like save the world, and that's why it's gonna take a little bit longer than actually starting the server. All right, so that was the demo. Now let's talk about how I actually built this. I built this using D#+, which is an amazing library for building .NET Discord bots. And this library says it's based off Discord Sharp, which is another library. But there are even more libraries than these out there. There's a couple of very popular ones. I think this one is the most popular. And there's definitely like a lot of effort that has gone into this project, so I would definitely recommend to like go in here, give it a star, submit any issues, pull requests, donate to these lovely people that have put a lot of effort into this. But this is the library that I used, that we're going to be using today in the demos. All right, and so to create a Discord bot, we're going to use the worker template that was explained earlier. So I'm going to say .NET new worker, and I'm going to put it in Discord demo folder. And it's going to use that as my project name as well. So let's change into that folder. And you can see this is a project with 2 C# files, the program and the worker. I'm going to open that in Visual Studio Code. Yes, I trust. And as you saw, as explained earlier, this project will start not with the ASP.NET Core builder, but it will use a non-web builder, but it has a lot of the same features. So you'll have logging built in, you'll have the dependency injection container, the services built in, the environments, the configuration, all of that stuff is built in, all those features. So it's a really great template to get started. Even for non-workers, actually, I like to use this one instead of the console app, just so that I can use all of the built-in features, which is really nice. But we do have this worker that comes with it, this hosted service. And so here is where I'm going to actually implement the Discord bot. But to do that, I'll first add the D# plus package. So I'm going to say .NET add package, and I think it's D# plus. Let me just double check in the documentation. So get started. Is it D# plus basics? Writing your first block. Yeah, it's called D# plus. Just want to make sure I didn't make a typo or something. All right. So we added that package. Now we have to add the Discord bot. And let me just open this other project I had. The way I'm going to do this is by adding the Discord bot as a singleton. Now you don't have to use singleton, but I think it makes sense since you only need one instance running. And so I'm going to use Discord client, and that's going to come from D#+. And then I am going to get the service provider. I think I can get the context in here as well. I don't need that actually. And now this callback is expecting me to create a Discord client and return it. So this is kind of like my factory method. And what I'm going to do here is say for our Discord client equals new Discord client. And that's going to expect some configuration. So I'm going to say new Discord configuration. And in this configuration, you got to specify a couple of things. The most important is the token. And so we're going to create a Discord bot in a second. You got to put the token in here, and this token is kind of like a secret key that will help you and that will do the authentication with Discord. And you also got to say what token type it is, and it's going to be a bot. And then there's this intense property, which is a little confusing in my opinion. Like, you got to look into it a little bit. But I'm going to say all unprivileged. These are like your permissions. And some of these intents or permissions you actually have to configure differently. Oh, what's happening here? Token
And
type.
that one maps to that number, that mask that you were showing earlier when you were trying to log in.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them are implicitly like allowed. You don't need to. So some of them are unprivileged, I believe, and some of them you actually have to explicitly get permission for.
Okay.
Let's see. What am I forgetting? Okay, I'm forgetting to return this. And so that's all you need to initialize the client. But let's get this token now. And to get this token, I'm going to Google Discord applications. Yeah, it's going to take me to the developer portal. And here we're going to create a new application. I'm just going to say demo. Agree. And now here you got to go to the bot section and say add bot. And you can say this is a public bot if you want everybody to be able to access it, but you can turn it as off if you just want you to be the only person that can use the bot. Now I'm going to show you some
question for you here, Niels. If I were to, if I were following along at home doing what you're doing here, would I incur any kind of charges to use the developer portal that you're using here? Is this a free of charge service?
I do not know if everything is free, but building a bot generally is free, so you wouldn't incur any cost. Definitely for testing or building and developing.
Got it.
All right, there's something on this screen that I'm going to go back to later, but now we're going to go to auth2, and here you want to go to the URL generator. And that's how I got that URL earlier. So here you want to check this checkbox for bot. And then under bot, you want to check the permissions that you want. And I want to send messages. And maybe we'll get to that later, but I might want to use the /commands. So now that I have this URL, I can paste that into the browser. And you can see the same kind of invitation that you saw earlier. I'm going to add the bot to BurgerCraft, and I'm going to give those permissions. Check the captcha again. There we go. And then now demo has arrived. Now you can see that Minecraft bot is online, but the demo bot that we just created is not online. And we're going to fix that in a second. Unlike other applications, this bot requires you to have like an active connection at all time, while some other applications might depend more on webhooks, so that when an incoming message will post an HTTP request to your web application and then you handle that. This one is a little different, that you have to have an active connection, which is quite interesting. Right, let's go back to bot. And now I'm gonna have to get this token, but I don't want you to see this, so I'm gonna do this on a different screen.
Oh, come on, you can trust us.
Copy. And now let me refresh the page so it's not visible anymore. There we go. I have copied it, and now I'm going to say .NET user secrets init, And I actually don't have to do this command. As you will see, it says it has already been initialized. But I'm still gonna do this because this is kind of my workflow. Because with console apps, it won't be pre-initialized. With ASP.NET Core apps, it won't be pre-initialized. I think the worker template is one of the few that does have this initialized. I'm not sure why, but it does so. But generally, you want to do this edit command first, and then you can say user secrets set to set a secret configuration element. And I'm gonna call this one Discord bot token.
While
And
Niels
then-
is typing
yeah.
this, I wanted to point something out here. For folks that haven't seen this user secrets command before, this is the secret manager tool. This ships with the .NET SDK as of a particular version that I do not remember due to old age. But this is not something you would want to use in production. So as you move from the development environment where Niels is right now to your production environment, consider some other approach, like Azure Key Vault, for example.
Yeah, and you can also use environment variables. And in some of the Azure hosting that you're going to see, you're actually going to see how I'm using environment variables in that case. Or a vault service. Vault services are really great too. So I'm going to copy paste the Discord token in here, but I'm going to do that off screen again. There we go. And then I'm going to clear everything so you can't see it. And hopefully I won't go up by accident and display it. But you know, worst come, I'll just have to delete the bot. Now let me go back in here, and now I actually do want that context, and maybe I have to put this as the first parameter. Let's see. Let me look at one of the overloads. I think there is a way to get a context. No. Okay, well, if you can't get the context, normally you should be able to. I forgot how to do it. But if you can't, then you can still get the configuration this way. So I'm going to get configuration from the service provider, get required service configuration. And now from this configuration, I'm going to get that, what was it, Discord bot token. And now we should be able to retrieve that token this way.
And there's a question on the chat about the storing of the secrets as well.
Sorry, let me.
It's
Let
okay.
me open the
It's
door
okay.
real quick.
We can talk about what's in the chat, you know.
I think he wanted
If
to
it
read that
is,
question.
if it's okay to store secrets in app settings.json for production, and that's what we were talking about, using other things for production, right? Because putting on app settings would put that in your source code. So if you have something like a GitHub repository or something, you would be exposing your secrets and your passwords and things like that on the files. So that's what we were referring to, like use key vault, using environment variables and things like that.
Yep.
So,
And I would add to what Myra said there. Think of app settings.json as a place where you would put things that you do not care if that information is disclosed to people viewing your repo. Because app settings.json is committed to source control, anyone with access to that code can see your secrets if you put them there. The secret manager tool will actually generate a secrets.json file that lives outside of your application path, outside of where your source code is stored, typically in your user profile. And for that reason, it's a step more secure than putting it in app settings.json. It's still not completely secure because it's stored in plain text in the secrets JSON file, no encryption whatsoever.
But it is like in your user profile, so like it does have the security of your user profile permissions, I guess. But an admin could definitely, go in and go look at it. Also, even if you like would git ignore an app settings.json file on purpose, I think it's still a better idea to use environment variables or key vault, because like it's still a plain JSON file or plain whatever configuration file when you deploy it to your server. And if your server is breached somehow, it's still quite easy to get that, and a little harder, I would say, other ways.
Yep. And the reason why I mentioned Azure Key Vault, not simply because it's Azure. I mentioned that because you have more fine-grained control with a service like that over who can access the vault and what they can access.
All right. So what I thought I could do here was actually over here in this callback. So you can do a builder and get the service, and then instead of requesting the configuration from the service provider, you can get it from the builder, which is just a slightly bit easier in my opinion. So I'm gonna get it this way. It's gonna be the same though. Now in my worker, I am going to expect or accept the Discord client. Let's see. There we go. Discord client. And okay. I personally don't like underscores, but it doesn't really matter. So keep it consistent here. Now, by default, so when you're inheriting from background servers, you have to implement this execute async. And here's where you're going to do your long running work. Now, in the case of a Discord bot, you actually don't need this. You'll see why we'll be using other methods. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to delete it, because if I delete it, let's see. If I delete it, it's going to complain, because I have to implement this abstract method. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say task does complete a task, and I'm just going to return that. Instead, what I do want to do is override the start async and override the stop async. And let me just get rid of those base calls. And so start async is going to start the Discord client by connecting, and unfortunately it doesn't take a cancellation token, but that's all right. And I'm going to make this async. There we go. And then on stop async, I'm going to do reverse. So I'm going to say await Discord client stop or close. Let's see. Disconnect. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Now, to get a message or to react to a message, get the event of a message, you go to Discord client.on message created. I'm going to do this before connect async actually, and then you can do plus equals the method. And now if you were using Visual Studio, you could do like a nice plus equals tab in Visual Studio Code. That doesn't seem to be there. So I do have some code that I can look at to remember what the signature is. Let me just quickly cheat here. All right. So the signature of that is going to be like this. So it's going to have the Discord client and then message created event args. And this is the method that I want to use as the event handler. Now I do have to add a using statement for this one, and now it should be fine. Awesome. So now whenever a user sends a message in the Discord server, I'm going to have this method invoked.
We have a question in the chat here from Byte, which asks, what's the difference between execute and start?
All right, so okay, yeah. So start is going to be where you want to do some setup. That like setup that has to be asynchronous. I think this is a better place for that than the constructor, because in the constructor you can't do async things. And then execute async is going to be for long running processes. So if you have like a queue, you want to wait for messages to come in on that queue, or yeah, it's just any long running work you're going to put on there. It really depends on kind of the libraries and what you want to achieve. Maybe like in this case, you can use start async and stop async, but in your case, that might not be the case because of the libraries and the queue technology, the database technology that you're using. Does that answer your question?
Makes sense to me, but let us know if you have additional questions. Byte.
All right, on message grid. So here we're going to check for the message content. So if e.message and then content equals ping, then we are going to respond with message.respond async with pong. And this is the most common demo that you'll see for doing a Discord bot. I gotta make this async. Now, this is actually not going to work, and I'm gonna explain you why in a second. But let's just let's start this and see if I got it right so far. Oh, one thing I do want to do before that is I want to unregister the event. So, you know, whatever you start in start async, you usually have to stop in stop async. So, and in addition to that, I probably want to do Discord client.dispose. There we go. All right, let's start it up. So I'm gonna press F5, and then I have to, okay, let me go into here and say create C# assets for building this. And now it creates some files for running .NET Core and Visual Studio Code. And now I'm gonna start it.
Praying for the demo gods.
Yeah. All right, started. Let me go back to Discord, and it's live, so that's the first great sign. I'm just gonna say ping, and I get my breakpoint. That's another good success, and it has a message. This is not null, but then content is an empty string, even though I said ping. And that is actually because of a recent change in Discord. If I did this 13 days ago, this would have worked. But Discord has changed how they want you to program these bots. And so it's saying that message content is becoming a privileged intent. So you don't have this by default anymore. And so I would say like 80% of tutorials that you'll see online for building Discord bots are still gonna do it, are not gonna have this instruction. So you're lucky if you're watching today, because now you won't lose an hour or multiple hours into finding this. So what you want to do is go back into the Discord portal and go to message content under bot, and you're gonna enable this and hit save changes. Now it says here, once your bot reaches 100 or more servers, it will require verification and approval. And so this will be like a manual approval process that you'll have to do with Discord. And I don't know if they will approve it. So what you want to do is actually use what they recommend, which is the interactions API with / commands, buttons, and select menus. And now this is like a more user-friendly way of building bots for users, but it doesn't mean that this old, like it is more work and it's less intuitive as a developer, in my opinion.
I have a question here. Is there a specific version of D# Plus that you'd need to use to take this new approach that you're describing here?
Yeah, so to get the old tutorials to work, all you have to do is check this and hit save. Now, you know, for once you have finished that tutorial, you probably want to think about how do I migrate to these new APIs, because they don't really want you to use this anymore. They want you to use the interactions API. But this is all you need to do, and D# plus will still work. Now for slash commands, D# plus has another NuGet package. So this is not on their other documentation websites, but you can find some documentation in here. But what you want to do is, add this .NET add package. Oh, no. Copy pasting and Microsoft Edge has been broken in quite some time. Let's see. Let me use the UI instead. And there we go. Now I'm not gonna show you because this is a lot more work. Well, it depends on how much time we have, but I don't think we'll have enough time. But so you want to use this and then follow the documentation to set these up. And this is how I built that mygraph bot. This is why when I say do a slash, you can actually see these commands without, like you have autocomplete essentially. And they have description, which is very nice as well to explain what that does.
Yeah, I was going to ask if how was finding those endpoints, and I assumed it was some sort of like open API type, of format. But it's
yeah, I'm not sure.
You set that up with the slash commands.
Yeah, you do it with slash commands. I'm not sure if they use open API or something else internally. It might be possible.
Gotcha.
Either way, let me run this again now that I have that privileged intent, and then we can see if it works now.
And we have about 20 minutes, just so you know.
Okay, good. So let's say ping, it goes back here, and now content is populated. It's not an empty string anymore, so we're going to respond with pong. Yay, and it says pong. So that's what you have to do, but now I'm going to close this, and I'm going to show you how the mygraph bot is built. And I am using slash commands there, so I'm not going to show it step by step, but I'm going to show you the code.
Awesome.
So the first thing to do is, all right, ignore this Azure stuff for now. What you want to do is, you can ignore that too. In the Discord client, in addition to how you set it up before, you want to add this. So first the NuGet package that I already added and showed you, and then you can use this use slash commands method and add new configuration. Now this configuration is optional, but if you want to have the dependency injection that the worker comes with, you can pass in the service provider here, and then dependency injection will work with the slash commands. And then you have this slash extension, and for this extension you can then register the commands, and this commands is going to be a class. So I'm going to control click into this to see the implementation of this class. And to build the slash commands, you use these attributes. This is optional, but it gives you a nice grouping of all the commands. So my slash command group is server, so all the commands start with server. And then you see I use a constructor to get some dependency injection going. Let me close this. And then each method that you mark with slash command is going to be one of those commands that you saw in the Discord bot. So I have start, restart, stop, etc. And now instead of that simple API that you saw with respond async, now you have to do context, create response async, and then interaction response type channel message with source. I do not know what that means, but I was able to copy and paste it, and it works. So
Niels, I have a question about the groups.
Mm-hmm.
So you're defining that top level group called server, which from my understanding is like a container for the commands.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to define subgroups or subcontainers within a group?
I haven't done this, but I have read that you can do this when I was reading this document. Let's see, groups. So you can have slash command groups, and then you can also have a class and an inner class to do subgroups. you cannot nest even deeper than that, I think. I don't think you can nest classes deeper than that in C#, and I don't think it's supported in Discord, like their grouping API either.
Okay. Yeah, this here is exactly what I was hoping to see.
Oh, oopsie, I clicked the wrong icon. Sorry. But yeah, so if you look at Discord or D#+ documentation, you'll find these more complicated methods, and they're more complicated because of Discord, not because of the library. And so the way this is going to work is it's going to say starting server, then it's actually going to start my Minecraft server, and then it's going to edit the original response to update the content. And so if I would have done this, then this would have been replaced with this. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of that. Like, I want to see the original message. So what I did is I copied the original message and then added a new line and say start a server. And it's just like my personal preference, but I think it's just a little more intuitive. And so the same is done with restarting server and then stopping server. Now, I do think this one is a little different because you don't really like this. To get the status is pretty much instantaneously, so I don't need to like update the message once it's done. Starting and stopping, takes a couple seconds or even a minute. And then the last one is to get the server IP address and domain name. Now let me close this. There we go. Yep. So that's how that is built. Now, you might be wondering how do I actually start and stop the Minecraft server, and that is a virtual machine on Azure, and I did some basic Minecraft server setup. I'm not going to explain that in particular, but you can Google how to set up a Minecraft server, and then follow those steps for Azure virtual machine. But I am hiding the implementation essentially in this Minecraft server class, and I'm using the new ARM client. This is the new Azure SDK, and then I'm getting the Minecraft server, which I do by get the default subscription from Azure, get the resource group, and then get the virtual machine by name. And so once I have that virtual machine, you can say power on, deallocate, restart, and these other methods that will change the power state of your server. Now, to get the status, I'm getting some data via this API and inquiring like what the power state is, and I'm mapping this to like this is what you'll get back from the Azure API, and just like mapping this to a little bit more intuitive or user-friendly message. And then for the IP address, it's quite a few calls, but it's also just getting the virtual machine, then getting the network interface, and then from the network interface get the public IP address, and then from the public IP address get the DNS and IP address. So that's how I get those. Now I can
For
post
folks
this.
that are curious what you're doing here, you're programmatically interacting with the VM, and you mentioned an Azure SDK.
Mhm.
Which specific NuGet package are you using for this?
Good question. It is, well, not just one, but it is a bunch. So to work with the virtual machine, you have to use this compute one. Now to get the IP, the network interface and the IP configuration details, I have to add this network one. And then just to kind of integrate the Azure SDK with your .NET application, you use these packages. So it's Microsoft extension.azure. All right.
So it looks like it's those two management plane packages, the Azure.Resource Manager NuGet packages that are the key here to what Niels is describing.
And then the integration one is for doing this, I believe. Is to like set up the ARM client, the connection, the authentication with Azure. And there's multiple ways to do this. If you have an Azure account and you're signed into the Azure account on Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, you can use this default Azure credential. But I'm using an external Microsoft account that's Azure, and so you cannot use it with that. So that's why I'm using a service principal instead. But you can Google how to create your service principal if you need to do it this way. But I'm authenticating with Azure, and then what I am authenticating as, I explicitly gave permissions to have access to the Azure virtual machine to change the power state, and then also read permissions for the resource group, so it can read the network configuration and the IP configuration. All right.
I'm going to tee up another question for you, Niels, if you don't mind. I too noticed in your file explorer, looks like you're using Docker. What purpose does that serve in this project that you're working on?
I was about to get to that. So let's see where we are on the agenda. So worker template, Discord, Pingbot, Minecraft. So we got all of this done. Now I'm going to talk about hosting in Azure. Now, how do you host a Minecraft bot in Azure? As I said, like the reason I'm using a worker template is because this has to be continuously running. It's not like a web application that you can turn on when you get an HTTP request and then turn off when you don't get HTTP request anymore. It has to be on 24/7. The moment it's not online, it's actually going to show as offline on the Discord server. So over here, like you can see with the demo bot. Now, I personally have documented 2 ways you can host this. The oldest way of doing this is using Azure App Service. Azure App Service has this feature called Web Jobs. Now, this is like the predecessor to Azure Functions. But unlike Azure Functions, one feature that Azure Web Jobs has is having it continuously running forever. Like with Azure Functions, it has to start and stop immediately, like your incoming request and outgoing thing. With Web Jobs, you can run it continuously, and that is a requirement for your Discord bot. So you can use Azure App Service if you're interested in doing it this way. Go read this blog post. Personally, this is not my favorite method because App Service is for hosting websites, not for hosting a continuously running process. But before there was an alternative, this was your best bet. So the way that I do recommend to doing this is using an Azure container instance, which is why I was using that Docker file. Now, in addition to Azure container instances, I think you can also use Azure Kubernetes. That would be super overkill, but you could do it in theory. Or Azure App, what is it called? The newest service that is like built on Kubernetes.
Azure Container Apps.
Azure Container Apps, yeah. So, I haven't tried it, but theoretically, it runs a container. I think you should also be able to run it there.
Because I was going to ask for clarify something there. So the requirement for the bot to always be on, that's on the Discord side. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now they have started using more webhooks as well. So I'm wondering if there's a newer way to do this with webhooks instead of being continuously connected. But I have to do research on that. So
right.
Don't take my word on it. It used to be that this has to be the case. And for the bot that I demonstrated, it has to be the case because of the way I built it. But I think there are webhook APIs now. There may be webhook APIs that will allow you to do it on a more HTTP request basis instead of having it continuously connected.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I created this Docker file, and I'm not going to explain the whole Docker file, but in summary, I'm using this runtime to run the application, but I'm using the SDK image to build the application. And so once it's built, I publish it, and then I copy the published artifact into the runtime container, and that is the container that is going to be run when I push it to Azure Container Instances. Now I don't have Docker on my machine because this is my personal computer, and I use it for gaming, and virtual machines slow down gaming. So instead, what you can do is, and I have this in the history of this terminal, and I hope I don't have any secrets in here. Actually, I think I might have this as a command in here. Yeah, so what you can do instead is use the Azure CLI. Azure CLI. So if you don't have Docker, you can actually use the Azure CLI to build your Docker machine or Docker image, which I think is a really cool feature of Azure Container Registry. Now, I did create this Azure Container Registry beforehand, so you do have to do that. But just like a Docker build, you can essentially do an ACR build. Instead of building it locally, it will upload all the project files to Azure Container Registry, and it will build it in the cloud for you instead of on your machine. And while that's building, let me show the other commands that I did for this. So first, I had to create this service principal specifically for the ACR. This is the service principal for managing the Minecraft virtual machine. Sorry. So I had to create this Azure Container Registry, which is what this ACR stands for. And Azure Container Registry is a Docker registry. So it's like Docker Hub, but your private instance. So you don't have to publish your images publicly. I think you can make it public if you want to. Then you can log into your ACR, which is Azure Container Registry, and then you can run the ACR build once you're logged in. Let's see if it's finished building. Yep, so it's finished building, and now that image is pushed to my container registry, so now I can use it in other things that can pull Docker images from a registry. So what I did then is I got the registry ID, so I could use it in other commands. Then I created a service principal specifically for getting access to that registry, because my Azure Container instance is going to need to have access to my Azure Container Registry to be able to pull that Docker image. And so I'm getting this app ID so I could use this as a username and password essentially. And then when I create that container, which I'm not going to run because I already did it, then I use this username and password from the service principal, and I pass in the Discord bot token as a secure environment variable. This is what this argument is. Now you could use Azure Container, Azure Key Vault for this as well, but that would take a few extra steps. So I didn't do that for this demos. In production, I probably would do that. For this demo, I didn't. Then for non-secure environment or configuration, you can use environment variables, or it could be built into your app settings.json. But I personally like to use environment variables because you can then easily override what's already in your app settings.json, which is really powerful. So you can customize wherever you deploy your application. And yeah, that's essentially how I got this container running in Azure. And now let me show Azure. So this is the container instance. If you go under the containers tab, you can see this single container running the Discord bot. And then here you can see the bot running. And that's the bot that is actually running here on Discord. So that's the one I demoed. For those that are curious, here is the Minecraft server. So it's just a virtual machine. And let me refresh this. Yeah, so it is a Linux virtual machine where I installed Java on, and then I installed the Minecraft Java edition Java server. And that's all I have to show, I think. Yeah.
Really cool. I love it.
Very brave. Thankfully the demo gods were on your side today, but it was cool to see the real life end-to-end demo. A lot of moving parts there. There's a lot that could have gone wrong that didn't go wrong.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do everything, because I knew I was limited in time. If I was going to do the all the Azure CLI commands, then I was just setting myself up for failure, I think. But yeah, I'm glad it went well.
Yeah, and I also like that you know, kind of like you mentioned in the beginning, right? That in this case, it's a Minecraft server, but at the end of the day, it's literally just a VM. So this could be, you know, your production server or your dev test server, CI/CD, whatever type of server. And instead of, you know, you having to go through the Azure portal, you're just controlling this through Discord or your, you know, favorite chat application that you're in.
Yeah, and so I think this is like if you would apply this not for gaming but for like actual infrastructure, I think this is what they would call chat ops, is where you can kind of like control your environment through chats, through bots, which is pretty cool. So while you know you have to use different APIs to use Microsoft Teams or Slack, um, the concept is pretty much the same. They will use webhooks. Discord uses this persistent connection. Um, Now the Discord has a lot of cool features though. Like the Discord bot can actually go into your voice chat channels and play audio. Like it could play music, which is pretty cool, or it could listen. One project that I was trying to accomplish is to listen to the audio and then transmit that over a Twilio voice call. And the voice call works, and the audio of Discord works, but I have to like translate the audio, and I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to audio processing. And there's like a million other things that I got to do first, like that I have higher priority. So I never got to finish that, unfortunately. In theory, it should work. It should be possible.
Cool. Let me see. Are there any questions in the chat that we want to get to? And if not, we could probably wrap this up right on time.
Awesome.
I'm not seeing anything, but yeah, thank you, Niels, for this really, really great presentation. And thank you all for tuning in for another on .NET Live. Hopefully, you know, you go out and build bots for your chat ops or whatever else it is that you're interested in. All right. Make sure to check out our other .NET Live streams on .net/live if you're interested in seeing other related topics to the .NET space. And then next week, we're going to have Prakash joining us, who I think I may have seen in the chat here. But Prakash will be joining us to discuss how to build, test, and deploy .NET services, .NET microservices to Kubernetes. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to check that out. Tune in same time next week, and we'll be happy to see you. Thanks all. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.